Hello, and thanks for tuning back into the Irish Angle in association with William Hill. As always, I'm joined by Paddy Flood and Johnny Ward. Dads, how are you keeping?
Good, Emma.
All good, Emma.
Good stuff. Lads, we have plenty of, I suppose the highlight being the York Ebor Festival, which ran from Wednesday to Saturday. Johnny, we saw something in York we haven't seen much of this summer, plenty of rain, which took its effect on the action on track. They got some fair downpours.
Yeah, it's funny considering this is probably, could be the greatest drought in the history of British racing. But obviously, like these tracks, Emma, you can't just let them away and let nature take its course, because nature is basically screwed at the moment. So like they've had to be watering, fairly consistently to keep the ground ready for festivals like the York one we had. It's debatable. I've asked one of the riders who rode in the Juddmonte what the ground was like. I haven't gotten a response actually yet, but I only asked now today, so I don't know. There was definitely some good debate in the Racing Post about the ground and John Gosling's excuses after the Juddmonte. Like the ground is given as good officially. How bad it was, I don't know. And ground descriptions only go so far as well. Like when it can rain on top of ground that's quite hard and not make much of a difference. It probably did affect Ombudsman. I'm not sure how much it affects them. There was a lot more to it than that. But I suppose ultimately, Emma, we're crying out for rain, really. And it's funny that after the amazingly, alarmingly dry summer we've had, the Coronation Cup, the Oaks, particularly the Derby, were totally ruined by the ground. And it was a further kind of quandary in relation to York, but I'm not sure how bad it was either.
Yeah, it probably wasn't maybe as bad as some people made it out to be. And I don't think there was much the team at York could have done either. Like, they stopped watering the week before and, you get these downpours. There's not a whole pile you can do really to save the ground then. And Paddy, the first big race we had on the Wednesday, Juddmonte International, it was being big, I suppose, as a big match between Constitution River and Ombudsman. But it was Item who got up under Colin Keane. It was a start of a great week for Colin.
Yeah, brilliant week for Colin Keane. And as we say every week this year, he's definitely starting to fill into them boots of the Juddmonte job. He looks comfortable. You can see it in his demeanour, speaking to the trainers, that he seems to have built up a nice relationship with them, and vice versa. Trainers seem to be really trusting him now, and you can see it in his riding, and he's just riding very confident, and it's brilliant to see, because Colin's a lovely fella and a top class rider. But I mean, I think Item probably outstayed them. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if he's the classiest horse in it, but I think he was the best stayer in the race. I thought William Buick wasn't brilliant on Ombudsman. To me, it felt like he had one plan, like plan A, and when that didn't work, he had nothing in his locker to go to plan B, C, or D. Because I think when he took him back straight away outside the gate at the gates, that was plan A. And Action actually missed the break, and Roland Whelan decided, well, I'm not going to get to the front here, because they were going so fast anyway, that I suppose William Butte presented him with the chance to put him in a pocket. You know what I mean? We would all do it.
I would say, how are you trying to say me?
Well, it's race riding. That wasn't a team.
Yeah,
but that was nice.
I don't think. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I don't think that was plan A for Ronan. Like, I think Ronan actually was going out with the intention of making their own. And like, cause I'd say Ryan would have liked a bit more covering behind us, but he didn't want to go after Wayne going a million miles an hour.
Oh, 100%. Like once he missed the break, because the speed was on, like the speed was absolutely flying, and because the speed was on, I tell you, it was on because Ryan Moore couldn't hold Constitution River. That's the only reason Wayne went so fast, because I'd say Ryan was screaming at him to go on, I can't stop this horse. And I've never seen Ryan Moore ever as uptight on a horse and under pressure ever before. And this kind of came from the minute he got up on him in the parade ring. If you watch the race back, you can see him going to the start. He had to get the two other Ballydoyle runners, to bring him over to the rail and walk, because he couldn't stop him. If he'd have jumped off straight away when Pat Keaton let him go, he broke into a canter and he couldn't get him back. So his head was starting to fry on the way to the start. And I mean, he just ran as hard as he could run for 2.5, 3 furlongs. And like this little skip over the road, that's because he wasn't looking where he was going. He was just running blind. And he'd done some job to get him back now, but like he used so much petrol, he couldn't win. And I still think he's a very good horse. But yeah, I wouldn't be giving William Buick an A+ for that one.
Yeah, I tend to agree. York, it was a fair performance, like you said, given how free Constitution River ran to stay up and get third. But I don't think William covered himself in glory on Ombudsman, like you said. What did you make of it, Johnny?
Oh, there's so much to talk about in this race. Like I felt that Ombudsman he'd basically run his race so early to make up that ground, and he completely flattened out. I mean, they were going 62, 63 kilometers an hour in this race, and so it paid to be held up. And to be fair to John Gosden, like I sort of agree with Aidan O'Brien when he said he likes a bit of a whinge, or he likes a bit of a moan in relation to his comments about the Derby and how like you're taking on a battalion. But like for me here, it looks he won't get the reference, John Gosden, but there was definitely a David Clifford being Ombudsman sort of aspect to the race, and like he was taking on. He was taking on more than individual horses in this for me. And I'm not trying to say, like, he got into a pocket and all of that, but I thought John Gosden actually carried himself well after the race, because this was a race that was, if you were in the Ballydoyle Culmore camp, to me, it looked like it was all about the favourite winning, the Constitution River winning the race, and that didn't quite pan out. I felt he ran a laudable race, and Paddy has gone through it there. But I feel this was an unsatisfactory race in many respects, where the American system, where the told couples horses that are with the same owner, for me this was a race that kind of was like that, because you've good horses here who to me didn't run on their merits, like, and it's as simple as that. And I know I give Ombudsman a bit of a pass, but I would be kind of annoyed if I were John Gosden with the way the race developed. And there are deeper questions to ask in relation to, there's race riding, but like the issue of team tactics isn't going to go away either.
Yeah, personally, I'd probably be a bit more annoyed at my jockey, to be fair, because I think he had the opportunity to get out of the trouble he was in. He took the pull back and got himself in the pocket. If he went forward, I think he probably would have been okay. He didn't have much room going up the straight then. Look, I don't know. I think I'd be taking plenty of positives out of for Constitution River if they can get his head kind of back intact. Like Paddy said, like his head was blown the whole time. Whatever happened to him on the day, I'm not sure. But he ran a huge race to be third. How good is the winner, do you think, Johnny? Like they're talking about the Arc now. Could he be up to that level, do you think?
Yeah, like I suppose the thing about racing is, Barney Curley used to say, never be afraid of one horse, and with Barney, that was grand if you were running off 43 and you should be rated about 85. But races, I mean, to think where Mini Hawk is this year compared to last year, Mini Hawk nearly won the Arc last year. Races can work out in strange ways. This was a very, very strange race. It didn't pan out tactically, I think, almost as anyone expected it to. And Item probably sort of picked up the pieces. But both he and Al McCam are rated 122. Constitution River was 124 rated, who really had no experience against proper top-class horses. When he won the Eclipse, the older horses hadn't won a Grade 1 between them, a Group 1 between them. So this was a genuine test for him, and I think he is better than the bare form. But the two horses kind of picked up the pieces, with Ombudsman clearly nowhere near his rating of 132. So if you go to the Arc, it could be a strange race. Item's well worth going for that. I do feel if this race were run in the Champion Stakes, although maybe that's not a great example, if it were run very fairly on good to firm ground, I'd be surprised if he'd win again against these horses. He might beat Constitution River. I don't think he'd beat Ombudsman again in a genuine mile and two race where Ombudsman doesn't have a myriad of excuses. But it was still a very good performance. Like Colin Keane, it was a breathtaking week, but I'm not sure whether this or Calpanan merits more reward.
Why wouldn't the Champion Stakes be run fairly? You're starting to sound a bit like John Gosden now, Johnny.
He's kind of gone. I mean, it's been made the point before. Like, it is difficult. Like, if you're taking on, and this isn't necessarily a Ballydoyle thing, but if you're taking on three horses that are running in the same colours, and one of them is 200 to 1, and we'll say one of them is basically 50 to 1, and it's these are genuine questions. And in fairness to Aidan O'Brien, he has absolutely dismissed the idea of team tactics. But I spent a lot of the last few days, an unhealthy amount the last few days, trying to wonder like what goes on with jockeys and an operation pre-racing, and it might have nothing to do with the trainer how the race developed. Jockeys make their own decisions in races as well, but this race for me, it was unsatisfactory for a lot of reasons.
Okay. One thing we do know is that Juddmonte came out with 2 fairly good contenders, I think, by the end of the week. Paddy, we go on to Thursday's feature, the Yorkshire Oaks, Kalpana. It was a messy race, again, messy tactically. The rain was falling, it was soft ground. It looked like that front roller wasn't going to come back to them for a long time. But Kalpana got the job done. I have to say, I really felt for Sparrow Nagle.
Yeah, like whatever about the race we were just speaking about, but this one felt a little bit embarrassing with the pacemaker. It was like 2 furlong pole was your winning post, really. That sort of way. That's the way she was rode. And the fact nobody followed her, which you've top class jockeys there. Like Ryan only followed the pace on Constitution River because he'd no choice. But the lads were well able to ride the mares as easy or as much as they wanted to, so they were able to rate them in behind. So it just visually didn't look very good. I see a few people commenting on Colin's ride on her, and mixed reactions. People are having there was a guy on Racing TV saying, she got there a bit too early. She's done that probably 2 or 3 times and floats a bit in front. But I'd agree that because that pacemaker is gone and you've rated your race yourself, it does come a point where you have to say, right, I have to go here. Like this thing is still going. And it only folded at the furlong marker. So she did end up there plenty soon. And she did idle, because she always does, if we remember back to her races. But it takes a fair jockey in it.
What do you do, Colin, though? Sorry, Paddy, what do you do in his scenario there?
That's what I'm saying. I think he done right. I think he had to do what he did, because otherwise, if he gets beat on her otherwise, how stupid does he look then, or how much will he be kicking himself? Now, Sparnua for me was hugely unlucky, because the perfect point in the race for her to get out and get chasing, and I'm not sure Rossa Ryan had a gap there now. For me, Rossa, and I don't want to be jockey bashing the whole show, but Rossa was in front of Kalpana at one stage, and he literally could have pulled out to her lane, and he decided to go in. And when he went in, he thought, oh no, there's nothing there. I'll try and make a gap. And there was never a gap there to get through. So by the time that, I think it was Dylan Brown and someone else, I don't know who else it was, but the gap wasn't there. But to be fair to her, she got down and she hit the line really, really hard. And I'd say Jim Bulger now is very, very happy. But I'd say he's also a little bit disappointed that they left it behind. But who's to say, if she gets out earlier and goes with Kalpana, does Kalpana actually beat her further? Because she had the last shot at her. But it was a brilliant race, really, for the mares. It's Kalpana's just backing up her form all year. She's a hell of a horse.
100%. Johnny, like it's. We go back to Sparrow Nua for a second. I know you're a big fan of her as well. I suppose they're learning things about her with every run, but she's so unlucky. Like there's been a few hard luck stories for her. I'd love to see her get a big one before the end of the year. Where they go next, I'm not sure, but it was nice to hear Maurice Regan's racing manager getting interviewed yesterday say she'll definitely stay in training next year anyway. And look, she's a fair filly for Jim Bulger to have now.
Oh yeah, was it last week you were saying, well, that's the end of the Yorkshire Oaks anyway, and I say,
yeah.
But I was probably saying it in jest, and Jesus, here she is declared, and she should win after running the campaign of this horse. Jim got this completely wrong under at Leopardstown. Now I tipped her for that race. I did tip her for the last 2 races, but I tipped her for Leopardstown, so I still felt myself that she was good enough to win over a mile that day. But that race didn't work out. The way that she was ridden forward as well, because of the trip, everything didn't work out for her. I don't think she enjoyed it, and she still, despite the campaign she's had. And you have to kind of give Jim a bit of kudos here, because a lot of trainers trainers they'd look at the rule book, and Jim has never looked at what should be done or what other trainers would do. He, and he gets it wrong, I'm sure, as well, but he nearly won 3 guineas with Finchale Bio, and he very nearly pulled this off, and like, she was plainly unlucky. And I don't agree with everything Jim Bulger said. The last interview I had with him, I as I say, I think he said things maybe that I don't think he necessarily needed to say, but I've always gotten on with Jim, and he's compelling company. But if anyone as a racing fan isn't thrilled by the idea of Jim Bulger potentially winning a Champion Stakes or an Arc at nearly 85 years of age, taking on our old rivals, it's mad stuff. This horse is a throwaway on pedigree, just given to Dawn Approach, because Dawn Approach is in the same stable, like, had produced nothing prior to that. I think she's out as she Lorad as Animo herself. She's nothing. No, she did no chance of producing a horse really when she was thrown to Dawn Approach, who obviously has had Mad Moon and Poetic Flare, so he is capable of getting good horses. But ultimately, he's a low key sire, and that's why even flat racing, it's amazing that this has worked out. And she absolutely should have won. I actually think Colin was brilliant on Kalpana, because I don't know what else he could have done. And it's been put to me like, do we need to declare now pacemakers in races? Because if I'm backing the horse and pacemakers do win, this race is just, I thought it was unsatisfactory. I really did. Like, it's like, and if you're having a race and there's an intended pacemaker, maybe we need to say this horse is the intended pacemaker, and you declare that pre-race, and as in Britain, where you declare, a horse had a wind off and so on. Because I just thought this race was kind of it made it interesting to watch, but I thought it made it very, very difficult for Colin. And sometimes these pacemakers do win, and part of you must be nearly thinking, what's the reaction on social media here for a split second if I don't? Like, you're nearly probably thinking that, and that might be daft to say, but there are true run races, and then there are races that are difficult. And we saw with Burghcastle last year as well, in the same festival, that these pacemakers, it's not always the one operation. But I don't know, like, it's something I've mixed feelings about.
Yeah, the point on maybe declaring their like tactics to go and make the pace, like, mightn't be a bad shit. Maybe I'm wrong in saying, but is that the way they do it in Hong Kong? There's some racing jurisdiction that you can declare your instructions. Whether it goes to the public, I'm not sure, but definitely to the stewards anyway, at least. And if they missed the break or whatever, you can always explain it afterwards. But I mean, like, you had Sugar even making known in there. Like, I mean, she's a Group 3 winner. She's no slouch herself. It looked for a while like she was going to stay there, and it did make the race very, very messy. Just on Spar on Newer, like 25-1. I'm just looking here now. William Hill for the Arc. I'd love to see her go for that. I think the 1.5 miles is right up her alley. She doesn't mind soft ground. She's a filly. Yeah, she's easy to get behind this year, I think. But we'll move on, lads. On the same day, on the Thursday, the Harry's $500,000 sales race. There was a bit of we had a monster performance, I suppose. Firstly, to mention Sun Goddess, obviously Group 1 winner, stepping back into sales race company. She was hot favourite for this, Paddy. She didn't have the clearest running, but she went out a very, very impressive winner. The kind of talk afterwards was, should she have been allowed to run in this race? There's arguments for and against, I suppose. What are your thoughts?
Listen, she was bought at sales, like you said last week. She was there for everyone to buy. She shouldn't cost millions. She was probably in 90% of people's budgets, and they didn't buy her. So, I mean, she's entitled to run. She was bought from that sale, so she could run in that sales race. For me, looking at it, I was wondering, why is she there? And all I came up with was, maybe Aidan O'Brien is starting to think about the English Trainers Championship. You have Andrew Balling putting a lot of pressure on him, and I'd say he might have just looked at that prize money and said it's probably going to be easy pickings, That's the only thing I could come up with why she ran in it, but Jesus, wasn't she impressive? I was worried now where she was, and I was worried for Ryan. I thought, you're in serious bother. But my God, once she got out, she just blew them apart. And I suppose she could be the one that went under the radar in Coolmore. She's definitely turning out to be one of the top fillies there this year anyway.
Yeah, look, I suppose she I think her official winning margin is 6 lengths. She's rated 114. The second horse is rated 81, and she was giving him £2. Look, she was entitled to win it as impressively as she did, I suppose. like you, I was kind of wondering maybe why was she there? Kind of your thoughts on the Trainers' Championship probably does make sense. In fairness, like it's a £500,000 race, and like I think Aidan was asked in his interview afterwards, like why was she running here, and that's pretty much the answer he gave. Like it's a race worth an awful lot of money. I'm sure connections don't need it, but maybe it will be a need to him in winning a trainer's title. What do you think, Johnny? Maybe some people were kind of making the argument that group winners, one winner should be maybe penalised more, like just looking at the conditions of the race. There's a £7 penalty, I think, for winning a pattern race, so £5 for a listed race, and £3 for any other type of race. I think, you know, maybe these Group 1 winners need to carry heavier penalties if they're going to show up against these sales in these sales races. But at the same time, like Paddy said, she was there for all to buy. I think 140,000. You know, she's in the race. She's entitled to run, I suppose.
120 grand sterling Avenue Bloodstock for MV Magner. So that was a good buy. Like the horses by Sioux Nation, who would have been, I'm not sure what Sioux Nation was standing for last year. It's a lot less than that. So when you're paying a lot more than the stallion's fee, obviously you see something physically. And the dam either was a half sister to Scream Blue Murder. So by Star Spangled Banner. So there's a big kind of Coolmore connection there, and MV Magner and obviously made the decision that the horse was a good buy at that. The Ferrari run, like Aidan is kind of a bit of an enigma because he's never like Aidan. I honestly don't know if he gives a damn about winning a British title or if he's motivated by all the Group 1 record. I doubt that's really a factor with him. And Aidan will never probably, like, he'll never big himself up in any shape. So I don't really know if it would have surprised me that he was that bothered about winning the British title, but maybe he is, and maybe like this was decent money. And in fairness, it was candy from a baby. Like the horse got into all manner of problems, but ultimately had to beat two horses rated 81. And this horse was absolutely fairly running this race because this was the sale and that was grand. It was a great performance, but like Sioux Nation for me is becoming like, how are they going to treat him now in Coolmore? Because I know Paddy Toomey, you've said, is a big fan of Sioux Nation, but like he's produced basically a bit of a superstar here, and his own race record wasn't good enough to think he'd be as good as he is. But in terms of how you compare him now to No Nay Never, I say a lot of people, as much as it's been a good year for No Nay Never, I think a lot of people will see a lot of upside for Sioux Nation because he seems to be getting really good looking, powerful horse as well. We're obviously very fast, but this one stays well, and it was visually breathtaking. It was probably more in keeping with her best form, and she was able to produce that turn of foot when she got into trouble. But I don't see the Ferrari at all about her running the race. She was perfectly entitled, and very good call to buy her in the first place as a yearling.
Yeah, 100%. And you'd really wonder, like they must have been really, really impressed with her physically at the sale as well. The fact that she ended up in Ballydoyle, she could have maybe gone to, the other trainers training for them, but like, £120,000 purchase from the Doncaster yearling sale, like no slating to that sale at all. But like it's not normally the type of horse you'd see ending up in Ballydoyle. So she must be really, really impressive physically. I haven't seen her now myself, but yeah, look, it was a good performance and entitled to be there. I think we all agree on that. We'll move on the rest of the week. Paddy, look, with other big Group 1 races, Baccio really impressive in the Nunthorpe, notable speech. When the city of York, what else caught your eye?
I would have said notable speech, Emma, because I suppose he's a horse I really, really like, but I've just come to terms with it. He doesn't like Ascot, basically, we just don't see the best of him in Ascot. But yeah, I thought he blew that field apart, and for me, he probably should go travelling, the flat sort of tracks, and I really think he'd do a fair job if he went down to Australia too, on quick ground. He's very good over 7. He's very good over a mile. Just Ascot wasn't his thing. I suppose what really caught my eye was Joseph O'Brien's 2-year-old that won the 100 grand maiden, the richest maiden in Europe, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like his name, Benjamin Heron Gold. To travel from Ireland to York, having your first run in a really competitive race and win it in the manner he did, I thought this could be a superstar. And like any amount of Josephs for the last 2 or 3 weeks, everything that he runs is just, you're like, geez, that could be a superstar. They're just flying, aren't they?
Yeah, they're on fire, and we saw it carrying on to the Curragh as well, Johnny. Dylan Brown riding a 5-timer, 4 of those for Joseph. And he had his first winner in the Juddmonte Silks as well, a big milestone there.
Yeah, and Blackbeard progeny as well. The best Blackbeard I think run so far, and Blackbeard is a no name ever. So it'd be interesting how that works out. And um, the the relationship with Khaled Abdullah's Juddmonte, the late Khaled Abdullah's Juddmonte operation. Like I just love Leopardstown the other night. So lovely, won at 2-5. But there were two Khaled Abdullah owned horses in the race. One was Fair Say, who was out of big break for Dermot Weld, and the other was Zenith Blaze out of Heliac for Joseph, who ran very well to finish second. And then he produces a horse that's I don't know, and where do you start with the performance of that horse? Monogram at the Curragh. There was all like for a Kingman to be 4-6 first time out, taking on some well-bred horses in the race. I thought it was a really taken performance. Like he was badly away, like just asleep kind of. And I don't think Joseph trains horses really to win first time. Like he's a trainer, a really outstanding trainer who I think intuitively doesn't. What's the point in having a horse going first time? But the horse is still sent off 4-6. If you're backing this horse at 4-6, it's absolutely word. Like you can't back a horse if Joseph O'Brien's that price first time out. So he's obviously considered very good. And even though it was a short head, it was one of them. Yeah, he's getting there. He's going to get there. He's going to win. And as for the jockey, I mean, I'll have to defer to Paddy here, but like what a talent this guy is. Like he just seems to have everything. He's an absolute movie star. We should be promoting him more, I think, from a racing perspective.
Yeah, and part of that big 5-timer for Dylan, Paddy, the debutante, I thought was a particularly good ride, Green Empress. I think he said he said he'd tell himself to count to 10, but he ended up counting to 30 before he went and made his move and got there just in time on what looks like an impressive filly.
Yeah, she does. She looks really impressive. But like, just touch on Dylan. Like I've been banging the drum about this fella for years, and as I said, he's the best rider I've ever seen, from riding in pony races to how he's improved, how mature he is, how iPad in his. He just has it all, Johnny. It's like saying to yourself, how is that horse so good? They just have it. They have it, he's not a drinker, he's not a smoker, he just wants to be the best, but he's not a showman like Frankie, he doesn't have to jump around and tell everyone he's the best. He'll do that on the track, and he's got a exceptionally good brain to race ride, read a race, but then at the other side of it, he's got the skill. And if you see him pushing a horse compared to a lot of other lads, you'll see a lot of other lads they're doing a lot in the finish, and whip action and stuff like that. It's all, listen, I was the same. You're just pushing and you're trying to force a horse to go forward. He just, like I said it before, he rides very like Leicester. If you watch any of his horses, they're always down low, hitting the line. Most horses he ride, you can get their head to stretch fully, and you'll see their action. He just gets every single inch out of them, and he never breaks. Rymore's the same. In the last furlong, you never see him going to grab a fresh hold of one. Once he grabs a hold of one, that's it. The balance is there. The power in his legs to keep him going forward. Whereas other jockeys can bounce around a little bit and give a horse a little bit of a chance to maybe think about a line. But this guy is like, he's only going to get better and better and better, and he's going to be probably the best we've ever produced. I think that's just my opinion. Others will say the likes of Mick Canans and Johnny Murtaghs, and I think this fella just ticks so many boxes. And a bit like Ryan, he's got the brain for it. That sort of way. There's no quirks or kinks about him. He's just a hell of a rider. But yeah, look, they're riding the crest of a wave at the minute, and I was starting to worry for him in the jockey's title, but then look, he can come out and ride 5 winners in a day on the Curragh on a group day, like, so. He's never beat in the jockey championship either.
No, I don't think so. I think it was kind of overall, look, it was a high quality race, I suppose. Giant Liquid Alpha, and I Believe I Can Fly, two of the, I suppose, by Doyle fillies with the biggest reputations, but only 5 runners, 2 from Aidan, 3 from Joseph. It wasn't the most satisfactory field, I suppose, albeit a high quality one at the same time.
Yeah, like, and that's not their fault, I suppose, Emma. That's kind of where it's at, and people will find that, you know, a little bit dispiriting, and sometimes it's either, you know, it's Donncha, Joseph or Aidan, and there's no doubt that it, you know, Joseph and Donncha have been lucky in life in that they've come from this operation, and it has given them an extra step up the ladder. Like, but I think in fairness they need to be judged on what they're doing. They're outstanding trainers. I have to say I was disappointed with Alpha. Like I felt I was sort of giving her the benefit of the doubt from Leopardstown, where she rather fell in at a time when there was maybe in hindsight debatable question marks about the stable form, but you know, her performance, being she's actually out of Alpha Centauri, who was the sponsor of the race, but her performance in her maiden, when she beat I Believe I Can Fly 6 lengths, I really felt she was going to be a star, and maybe she'll prove me wrong, but I thought she was disappointing. It was just a bit like Leopardstown. She looked pretty ordinary, really, actually, by the standards of a Group 2 winner in the closing stages, and she was pretty readily picked off by the two in front. So I was disappointed in her, actually, given how good her dam was, and obviously her father.
Yeah, I'd agree. I had real high hopes for her, and maybe she'll come back and be better at 3. I suppose being Sea of Stars out of Alpha Centauri, it would suggest that. But yeah, her last 2 runs maybe haven't lived up to the reputation she built earlier on in the year. And we had the futurity as well, Paddy. Giant Sequoia getting the job done there, remains unbeaten for Aidan Wayne riding him. But it was Florida Bay who kind of made some of the headlines afterwards. Ronan Reedham wrote him he was second. The stewards looked into it afterwards. I'll just give a quick read of the stewards report here. The stewards inquired into the running and riding with particular emphasis in the final 50 yards of Florida Bay, placed second, ridden by R.P. Whelan and trained by Aidan O'Brien. Evidence was heard from the rider and the authorised rep of the trainer concerned. Ronan stated that his instructions were to go forward and be handy. He further noted that he had gone hard and his mouth made an abnormal respiratory noise crossing the line. Chris Armstrong, authorised rep for the trainer concerned, confirmed the instructions and said that the trainer was satisfied with the ride. The race day stewards also received a report from the vet saying that he was post-race normal. And eventually they found he was not in breach of Rule 213, but that he was not in breach of Rule 212, but was in breach of 213, in that he had failed to report anything which may have affected stalling of his mount, being the noise he made in the final 50 yards. Paddy, what did you make of it?
I did watch it live, and I did think once Wayne Lorden got half a length, or probably looked like he was going to go by Ronan Whelan and win, Ronan definitely eased off the pedal. There's absolutely no doubt he eased off the pedal. Do I think Ronan would have won? I don't think so, but that's probably not the point. I suppose it's a hard one for the stewards to prove, because like me saying I didn't think he'd win, I suppose what are they going to suspend them with? You know, nobody came and nabbed them for a second. But I think, again, it just opens kind of worms for anybody who doesn't like the Coolmore operation. There seemed to be quite a negative vibe around Coolmore all week, really, even for the good horses that have run and visually and given us plenty to cheer about from Ireland. But a lot of social media, obviously, he's saying, it's corruption, it shouldn't be allowed. The horse Ronan was riding, he was 94. Like, he was a fancied horse, not a bad horse. And Giant Sequoia is probably 15, 16 to 1 for a Derby or something like that next year. I mean, the man who was third or fourth there, Shamey Heffron, rode one, finished fourth. Like, Shamey was very good at it. And to be fair, like, if he was going to get beat by Ryan, he still rode him out to the line. He mightn't have pulled out the stick and kept forcing the horse with the whip. But I felt like once Ronan put the stick down and seen it was Wayne Lorden on his inside, he started to bounce like a 10-pound claimer on the horse, and it just visually didn't look good at all.
What did you make of it, John?
Yeah, like Fran Berry mentioned it, in fairness to Fran, I think it's very easy for ex-jockeys. I'm sure Fran got on well with Ronan, and who wouldn't, because he's an absolute gem of a fella. And it would have been easy for Fran just to let that go. And a lot of people in the racing media basically don't say boo about anyone, least of all connections as big as this. But Fran brought it up in the wrap, I think with Gary O'Brien, And like watching it back, I was of a mind to look at Ronan's kind of stats this season. I think he's ridden 2 winners for Ballydoyle out of 40 odd rides, would say. One of them was the Derby, and Ronan was probably coming into the starting the axis with Aidan O'Brien. Like he was in that slightly difficult position as a freelance jockey or whatever to where he was going, and he's become a part of the team now, such that in the last 14 days he's had 2 winners, 32 rides. None of them was favourite, but 11 of those rides were for Aidan O'Brien, so that's substantial over 14 days, and they wouldn't be racing every day, so he's become a big part of the operation. I mean, we have to talk about the market here, and the market sometimes has you could overread into the market, but the market here would suggest that the fancied one of the pair was the horse that Ronan rode. And being honest, like I thought Giant Sequoia was way underpriced in the morning. Like he'd won a maiden, but I didn't think he deserved to be anywhere near the price. And Florida raised 106 and beaten Folsom Blue. Like he'd very, very good form, and he was the one back from 9-2 in the morning to 9-4. They're pretty much joint favourites in the off. I mean, I can't really add much to what Paddy said. I think the stewards are in a slightly difficult position because I don't know. Ronan, he seemed to kind of accept defeat too readily for me anyway, at the very, very least. And I thought, the optics do feed into, the prejudices that people have about an operation or that. And that might be completely wrong. I think Ronan reported the Respiratory Noise or whatever. To me, it looked like he kind of accepted defeat too readily. But I mean, anyone who's looking at that race, this is a proper race. The optics are just not good.
Yeah, I think most people would like seeing maybe a bit more vigorous in the last 50 yards. But look, we'll move on. The Claney August Festival we had Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Johnny, you were down there on Thursday. I saw unfortunate, I suppose, ending to the card. A couple of jockeys injured. Do you have updates on the 2 lads there? There was a couple of injuries on Thursday and another one, Gary Noonan on Saturday as well. But you got updates, I think, on how they're recovering.
Yeah, Gary Craven was obviously a very hard-working agent, and he's responsible for a lot of guys. It's been a tough few days for Gary because he's responsible for these 2 lads. And Paddy and Gary, I only know them from doing interviews with them, but I've great time for them. Like, and Paddy's done brilliantly in a short space of time. Gary is kind of a bit of a self-deprecating rider. I think he said he thought he'd carry the 5-pound claim to his grave. When I just him last year, he's a great lad, like, and he's very capable. But like, this is the danger of just this is the danger of jumps racing, and whether it's summer jumps racing or not is kind of irrelevant really, because like Paddy got a proper kick. From another horse, maybe 2 horses, but he got a kick on the ground. Paddy is still in the hospital as of this morning, hopefully gets home today or tomorrow. And he had severe pelvis injury. Gary Noonan, ribs, lung, shoulder blades. Like, and I interviewed Keane Quirk. Keane was on about he broke his arm, and he was showing me I think it was his left arm. He was showing to me at the races. Like, it's just, these are the dangers involved. It was a very strange kind of hour or so, Emma, on Thursday, because I think was it Joey Dunn had gone in and basically been cleared on the track after, I think, it unseat. But when he went into the weighing room, then I think he reported that he was kind of feeling something in his back or like a tingle, and so this kind of, the ambulance thing came to literally, like, the ambulance was backed into the weighing room door to get him out. And then I interviewed Coleman Sweeney, and Coleman was great to talk to, because I know he must have been under so much pressure. Like, it's a really, really strenuous position when what happened with Joey happened, and then Paddy O'Brien was down. And then I remember talking to Eric McNamara, and Eric McNamara was worried. He's the trainer of the horse. A lot of people were very worried. He was on the ground for ages, and I mean ages, like, and it was kind of getting a bit cold as the night went on. But they had to be very careful with bringing the ambulance over and all of that to bring him off the track. I was told racing will resume in 50 minutes. Eventually they made the call that they have to call off the last 2 races, and I think everyone was relieved at that. But Jesus, I was relieved to go out the track that Paddy wasn't like properly injured, because it was just a strange set of circumstances with the ambulance. being kind of dealing with another issue, and then the next race going ahead and all that. But I've we give out about the IHRB, but Jesus, just watching the concern of the guys on the ground and how worried they were. Like it's a really stressful job, like, and there's so much downside to it. Like, and I do kind of feel for them, because I could feel the stress that they were under when Paddy went down. And thankfully, as much as they're horrific injuries, thankfully they'll be okay in the long term.
Yeah, good to hear. They're on the mend at least, and doesn't sound easy by any means, but thoughts with them, and hopefully they'll all make speedy recoveries. We had plenty of action in France then yesterday, Paddy. Joseph O'Brien got on the board winning the Sedan race there. Diamond Necklace was the big disappointment. I thought though in the Jean Romane. Look, she lost her undefeated record there. Maybe takes the shine off her a little bit. Look, I don't probably think it was her running. Realistically, she was a very short price favourite, but disappointed to see her getting beat.
Yeah, I was very disappointed with her. She's a filly I hold in very high regard, always have, you know. She just looked slow yesterday to me. And whether that be she might have been a little bit flat, but like she never comes there on the bridle, hard on the bridle, but you can see Ryan just winds her up usually, and she's at the front and then she just stretches. But watching it, I never felt like she was going to win. You know, once she kind of got up sides in front, and the French horse that won it from the inside, it kicked and it went away from her and won easy, really. So, look, I forgive her one bad run. I'd like to see her again before I throw her in the trash heap or anything like that. But Joseph's horse, isn't he a grinder? You know, he just galloped horses into the ground. Like he's breaking horses hard. So you'd say he mightn't be a Melbourne Cup horse, because it's very hard to do that in Melbourne. The lads will sit and sprint. But if he's able to carry that speed from early in Melbourne, what usually happens is they'll jump out and go quick to the first corner and then slow down and then sprint. But if he's able to, you know, dictate it, and he looks like he enjoys grinding out in front, he could be a player in the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, I think they're all about going to Australia, but he won't live at Constitution Hill, Paddy. Did not see the coast during the week. Just feels like it's time for him.
I'm on the irishracing.com website here, and 2 of the top 3 stories are about Constitution Hill.
I mean, I bet they won't run and comer in Ireland and England easy. What are they expecting in Melbourne? You know, are they expecting them to water the track for them?
I don't know. 13,000 hits last week, Emma, because of I think it might have been because of the American team, but maybe we need more Constitution Hill to get even more, you know.
You need to send Constitution Hill to America. That would really blow it up. Senorita Benita, did you see that one yesterday, Paddy, in the morning? God, she had some turn of foot.
She looked exceptionally good, didn't she? And I suppose even a furlong and a half down, you thought another Coolmore horse that bowled away in front was nearly going to win it. But geez, when she got out of pack, she let down something serious, you know. And I suppose we could have her and son got S meeting at some stage, hopefully, because that'd be a hell of a race. 2 of them with a massive turns of foot and probably be ridden similarly. So it'd be very exciting to see them 2 going at it.
100%. I thought Ronan was gone on the carry the flag there. 150 to 1 would have been a bit of a shock in that. But yeah, she was electric under Oisin Murphy. But as we wrap it up there, we're running on long enough. I'll ask you both for a horse to follow before we finish up. Johnny, will I go to you first?
Another Star Spangled Banner as well, Senorita Benita. Between Star Spangled Banner and Sioux Nation, what a year they've had. I have to go with Monogram. Where Kingman fits into your kind of A to Z of horses you'd go to war with going forwards. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of them are kinky, or quirky. What if kinky? But Kingman is kinky, but he is kinky actually. Monogram is definitely kinky. Oh my God, this is a brilliance. Like, it's funny as well if you're like, oh, I got word for this horse. I got word for this horse, can't be beaten. Like, and you got the 2s in the morning, or whatever. It goes off 4 to 6. And still, like, so much can go wrong for us. Gets up by a short head. But, like, I love this. It's a gamble on a horse. Obviously, on the work I was doing at home. So much went wrong. And you see the way Joseph spoke afterwards. I generally don't trust Kingman horses implicitly. I think they're too kinky. But, yeah, this horse looks a machine.
Very good. Yeah, TDN Rising Star, I think, as well after that. Paddy, who did you spot during the week?
In Nace, the second race, the maiden in Nace, a horse called Timeless Tale for William McCreary and the Callahan family. I mean, Jesus, watch this one back, lads. It jumped up the gates. Billy Lee straight down the middle of the track. First time out, Willie's usually take a run. He wouldn't be known for winding him fully up. But I think 2 furlongs down, I'm looking at Billy and I'm thinking, he's cantering here. And when he let him lower, he let her down. Yeah, Two Nation filly, yeah.
There you go.
One of yours, Johnny. But yeah, like her last furlong was as good as her, second last or third last furlong. She looks a big, powerful, beautifully looking mare. It is from a selling family, but she definitely wants to keep on a tracker.
Yeah, she was my one as well. I'll jump on the bandwagon with you. I think she was about 25 to 1 in the morning, so I think she ended up about 14 to 1. So she was maybe nibbled at a bit. But yeah, like you said, kind of just echo everything you said there. She was really, really impressive, and anyone who hasn't watched it, like, it's kind of one of those debut performances. You just kind of be like, wow, she keeps stretching clearer and clearer. Really impressive, and where she go next will be interesting. Foodie McCreary looks like he's a nice one on his hands. But thanks very much to Paddy and Johnny, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. But Paddy will have his Jockey angle out tomorrow. Definitely worth a listen this week, I think.